Hey, it's great to be with you. My name is Jeff Fuller. You can find interviews at J Fuller Interviews on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the YouTube channel. I'm also the pastor at Living Hope Wesleyan Church, and you can certainly find information for the church at hopeforvermont.org. This is kind of when faith and life intersect, and they should always intersect. But joining me now, this is Jay Crum, Pastor Josh Crum. How are you, Jay?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for making the time. I just have to ask you, what are you doing wearing this Nebraska jacket?
Well, that's where I'm from, man. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and everybody here is passionate Huskers fans. So,
So,
so
did
yeah,
you grow up playing sports, or is this just kind of the trend being a Husker that you got to rock the jacket?
yeah. I did grow up playing sports. I played football in high school. Um, so I played basketball before high school. So I've been in that. But yeah, no, it's like a custom. It's like if you're Omaha or Lincoln, like you gotta rep the Huskers, man. That's what
So
it's
I don't know.
about.
I don't know which way to lean, but New England versus everyone. I had to break that out when I saw that Husker jacket, even though we're
Yeah,
talking a little
yeah.
different levels. But the reason why I had you on was a few reasons, and I just want to pull up this here. This is your
Yeah.
site, jcrummusic.com. When did you get into music? Is that something that you always loved along with sports, or did that kind of take precedent, as you got older?
Yeah, I mean I come from you know, like my mom and dad are from Detroit. So like it was big on like Motown and stuff like that. So music has always been a big part. My dad sang a little bit, my mom sings. And so music's always been part of our life. I started making music when I was around 15. I think that's when I wrote my first song. And I put out my first mixtape when I was 17. And so I just kept going from there. Yeah, music's always been a big part of me.
Who are some of the influences for you? Who did your parents listen to? Who did you like listening to when
Yeah,
you were young?
yeah. So Old Town's big, like Stevie Wonder, um, Michael Jackson, you know, Temptations. It was always something like that playing in the house. But then as I got older, more hip hop influences started getting in there. So like Tribe Called Quest, um, like Outkast, people like that. Um, and so and then like my mom was big on gospel, so we listened to a lot of gospel in the house too. So we listened to Kirk Franklin and people like that too. So yeah,
And talk to me a little bit about this album, Chaos. It
yeah,
seems appropriately named for everything we're going through, but when did that come out?
yeah,
And just share a little bit about its origins.
yeah. So that's actually a single, Chaos, and that's the song is just really about um it's like more personal chaos. I think sometimes um we can uh we can be like split on desires, when we split on like, man, we kind of like what Paul was talking about when he says, man, the good I know to do I don't do, and the good and the wrong that I don't want to
Right.
do I do. And so that's kind of like what chaos is like, man, like, God, I don't want to keep making these decisions that are not of you, and I I don't want my life to be so busy to where I can't, focus on you and everything. So the song is just navigating all of the chaos and trying to find balance. So yeah.
What do you think people make that decision? They do what they don't want to do. Is it because it's easier, because it's a habit? In your thoughts,
Mhm.
what's your opinion?
I think it could be a. I think it's a. I think it's a lot of things. I think it could be both of those. I think it could be a habit for sure. It could be because it's easier. Usually, the wrong thing to do is usually the easiest thing to do. Um, for me, if I'm angry at you, right, it'll be easier for me probably to go off and say some crazy stuff than it is to me to turn the other cheek and just be like, you know what, I forgive you. I'm going to take the high road. You know, it's harder to do that. When, you know, so we all of us have these impulses, I think, that we fight, and it's easier to just give in to those, but the consequences are crazy, and so that's why, you know, that's why I chose. That's why I wanted to write a song about it, because
Yeah.
I felt like it could help. Yeah,
No, that's real good. Joshua Crum, J. Crum, Pastor Joshua Crum, making some time. Here's a picture of you and the cat next to you, Stephen Malcolm. I actually saw him in concert. He's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where my wife is from. So I just
yeah,
thought that was an interesting connection. But can you just talk about hip hop, and I don't want to say Christian hip hop, but hip
yeah,
hop that comes from Christians? Just share about how you got into that game and what it means to you to be a part of that.
yeah. So I listened to. I think a lot of that had to do, as far as my introduction, had a lot to do with my mom. Actually, it was because she was super strict and she wanted to stop me from listening to hip hop that wasn't appropriate.
Sure.
So I think she got me this was back when cassettes were still. I don't think I was 12. Cassettes were still out. She got me a cross movement cassette,
Yes.
the Human Emergency, and that was the first one I had. And man, I played that out, man. I played it until it unraveled. So so I think that was my first introduction, and that was the first like one that I listened to that I was like, yo, I really like this. um and then when I had been in church since I was around 10 years old. We were super, you know, faithful churchgoers, right? We would go every service, every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And I hated it. I just didn't. I was like, I don't want to keep going to this thing, man. I remember when I turned 15, I got really sick, and I got a brain infection actually, and it took me out for a long time. Um, to make this story shorter, um, I missed about 3 months of school. I did recover, but when I went back to school, um, I they gave me a bunch of study halls because they were sending this tutor to my house, and I actually got ahead. So when I went back for the next semester, I there was no more classes for me to take because I had already been so far ahead of my credit. So they gave me like 3 study halls. I had all this time to just, you know, waste at school because my mom wouldn't let me get an early out. So what I ended up doing is I started writing music. I just wanted to try my hand at it. So I went and downloaded a bunch of beats off the internet, burned it on a CD, and got my little Discman and started writing beats. I started writing to the beats and making music, and you know, went and there was a person in my church that had a studio, so we went and we recorded, and man, we just kept going from there. So, but yeah, that's really how things got started. Was came out of boredom and
Yeah.
too much time on my hands. So
Hey, so now you guys have just planted a church. It's called Slingshot Church. And
yeah,
could you just talk about how,
I don't know if that is ours. I don't think that's ours.
it's not yours? That's what
No,
came
no,
up when I Googled your name. My bad. I'll drop
no, it's
that
right.
down
Yeah,
and do
Slingshot
something
Group.
else.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So
So
um,
just
yeah, go ahead.
my question just was like having that brain infection, going through some difficult times, questioning your faith, but now you find yourself in the middle of planning a church and telling that good news gospel story.
Yeah.
How did that prepare you for what you're doing now, making the faith your own?
Um, man, that's a that's a really really good question. Um, I think I think I don't know. I feel like so I originally had this dream to want to plant a church like 8 years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And where I was at, um I had some leadership who I was writing music for their worship team and doing all that. And so when I had brought this dream kind of to them and be like, hey, this is what I want to do, um, they weren't really in agreement with me on it, you know. And it was like, hey, that's just not. You should just keep making music. You're good at that. Like, I just don't see the whole you being a pastor thing. Like, I just don't see it. Like, you should really just just pursue this thing. And I'm just like, it, it hurt. You know what I mean? I was like, dang. And I think so I had stopped pursuing it for a long time. So what ended up happening was I had every church that I went to after that, they were trying to make me part of a leadership team, or they wanted me to be a pastor, or they wanted that. And I'm like, no, like that's not what I wanted. You know, that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm running from this. Like, I just didn't, I was like, I didn't want anything to do with it. I was pretty hurt by what happened. I just was like, all right, I'm just going to keep making music. That's what I'm good at. That's what I'm good at. But it was something that I just couldn't escape. It was something I couldn't stop dreaming about. It was something I could not stop thinking about. It was something that people could not stop coming and talking to me about it. It was people. I'm doing shows at like a bar, right? I'm doing a show at a bar. There's no Christians there, and they're like, "Hey, man, if you ever started a church, I'm coming." It's like, stuff like that where it's like, man, what is going on? And it just got to the point where I was like, all right, God, I gotta stop running because this just keeps coming up. And so I went through this church planning. I met up with Myron. It was everything just kind of fell in place. I met up with Myron, and through this year and a half, man, we just been doing life together. We went to we did a couple exponential church planning conferences and went there, but it was really just um, like this intensive thing of God just, I don't know, man, just showing me what it means to really, really lead, um, what it means to be a healthy leader, what it means to, um, serve alongside other people. And really keep the main thing the main thing. And so that's the process, or at least over the last year and a half, that God has just really been trying to develop in me. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. I have to ask you, Myron Pierce is who you refer to, myronpierce.com.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to interview him with our church district superintendent, just how the
Mhm.
Wesleyan denomination is set up. And we really talked and tried to address the injustice that's been going on, but lately it's so headlining the news. And it's one thing
Yeah.
that I try to refrain from. It's not, hey, find your black friend and put them in front of a
Yeah.
camera and a microphone, because I don't think that's fair or that's
Right.
right. But
Right.
Myron has such a distinct voice, and I just wanted to ask you, how
Yeah.
can the church bridge what's taking place in society and in culture with what God has called us to do as Christians?
I think we gotta love each other well. And I don't think the church has done a great job at that. At least when it comes to this. When we talk about um it seems like the church, we're willing to take a stand for everything except for this issue. With this issue we say, okay, well, you just need to preach the word. And I think that perspective, I think that I agree that that's, we need to preach the word. But I think what people are forgetting is that these things are addressed in the
Yeah.
word as well. Um, and but yeah, like if we go to mission, if we're going to a mission, let's say in Mexico, and we want to we're not just there to just preach the word. We're digging wells, we're
Yeah.
building schools, we're doing all of that. We're addressing some of the cultural issues that are going on, maybe in whatever environment that we're going into. When um, when we're talking about when people want to take a stand against abortion, people are saying, hey, like, killing babies is murder. We're talking about that. But for some reason, when we say, hey, the American church has an issue with racism, or hey, our country has an issue with racism, we're like, oh, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's just preach the word. And that's not loving. That's not loving well. And so loving well means also, hey, we're not going to tolerate our brothers and sisters being oppressed. We're not going to tolerate these negative opinions and these negative stereotypes that we're unfairly putting on people. And so I think it starts with, man, realizing that there is an issue, because I think a lot of people don't even think it is an issue, or they think, oh well, that group of people are to blame for their own plight, and
Yeah.
so um yeah, I think it's important to to love each other well, address those issues, listen, um because that's kind of the other thing. People want to lead in this that have no experience, but then, instead of humbling themselves and being like, hey, here's a black brother, a black Christian that I know who has experience in this, let me allow them to talk and me listen to them. I think we've seen some examples of, you
Yeah.
know people with no experience trying to lead and ended up doing more harm. So I think it's important, that we listen as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I assume that you're referring to Lecrae as well in the news, and that was
Yeah,
just certainly unfortunate. I know
yeah,
that ignorance is a big reason for a lot of this taking place, and
yeah,
just let me share briefly that I was a director of mentoring, a mentor for a long time within the local public school system, and then top two questions I got from these kids was, "Do you know karate?" and "Do you speak Korean?"
yeah,
And so much of that I wouldn't say was racist, but it certainly was prejudice born out of ignorance because they did
yeah,
not know or understand. I'm a Vermont redneck, man. I was
yeah, yeah.
adopted, grew up here, splitting wood, hunting deer, and
Uh-huh.
doing all that type of stuff. And I think that we have to understand to listen, to understand that if we learn when we listen, it'll break down the ignorance so we can see
Yeah,
better. And I love what Myron says, Myron Pierce, when he talks about it's like if your house was on fire, my house was not, and the fire department goes to your house, it's like saying, hey, my house is a value as well,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
looking at who really needs our help.
yeah,
And then finally, I spoke with a good friend. They just went through this sensitivity training. It was just kind of weird how they phrased it, but they said, when we see colorblind, we see through our typically white eyes. And so instead of saying, I'm colorblind, no, we need to see how God created us all different with specific
absolutely.
gifts, and to really applaud the differences because it's
Yeah,
not good, bad, it's just different. And I just hope that we can do a better job with that. I hope our kids can do a better job with that, and local churches can really see and understand the need for that. As you're
agreed.
planning a church, and you just said that you're just beginning, and so you're trying to put all this stuff together, and then the pandemic hits. So
Yeah,
you've been doing strictly online, what some would say virtual.
yeah.
Have you been able to navigate during this pandemic?
We're we're learning, man. We're learning. I think a lot of it, it's I think it goes back to, okay, what's the heart of it, right? Um, I focus on I'm focusing on the who and why before the do and the what, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So I'm
Yeah, yeah,
focusing on who God wants me to become. I'm focusing on, man, what does God want? God wants us to be righteous. So I'm focusing on growing on that. And then I'm keeping the why in front of me of, okay, why am I doing? Okay, we want to disciple others. We want to uplift others. We want to see broken people restored. We want to help our community. We want to do all that. Okay, so with that being said, that means I can't be so tied to the what, because the what that we've been using is no longer a viable option when it comes to us trying to help others grow in their faith, right?
yeah,
So you coming to a church building on a Sunday, sitting down for 2 hours, that's no longer a thing. So if we keep the why in front of us, we're not always going to be looking towards, man, I can't wait till we get back to this or we get back to this. It's like, no, God, if this is the why in front of me, then like continue to show me ways that we can get this done. Because the traditional way of us doing it is not there right now. So different things he's been showing, we've been doing Zoom Bible studies on Monday nights. We've been doing of course we do like the online service. We do like check-ins, we do and then it's just like, like video calls, stuff like that, to where we're able to just do life in a different way,
Yeah.
but the heart is all still the same. And so yeah, I think that's how we've been navigating this thing. So a lot of it's, trying stuff out, and if it doesn't work, all right, we're gonna try something else. So
No,
yeah.
that's really good, and the connection piece is huge. And I
Mhm.
had the privilege of interviewing someone. They have an art gallery, and they said that they've been able to start a podcast so they can actually share the stories. So they are
Yeah,
telling stories so people can see it in their minds. And I just think, well, with music, that's just a huge part of
yeah,
just sharing the message. I just want to get into one grainy topic for me, at least. When
yeah,
you are writing, how much of your lyrics come from just natural flow versus that
yeah.
of researching what words mean, double meanings, things of that nature?
I think when I first started, it was everything was very kind of like researching and stuff like that. I think after a while, things kind of come naturally. Um, so um, yeah, so I think now, yeah, now things are kind of flowing. And a lot of times, man, I won't even catch. Sometimes I don't catch it until later. So I'll be like, oh man, that's a double. That was a double entendre. Or that was, stuff like that. So it was just like I'll catch it later. But yeah, it's very things are just very natural right now. They flow. A lot of it comes out of life experiences, or whatever God puts on my heart that He wants me to communicate. Whether it come out of some read, come out of reading. A lot of times it's not out of I'm like intentionally like I'm reading just to. That's one thing I had to stop in myself, because I would read the Bible because I had to write a sermon, or I would,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I have a song that I want to, man, I need to read the Bible so I can get this song done. It's like, no, stuff is starting to flow because, man, I'm reading the word because I just want to read the word. I want to get close to God. So like once the intention changed, I think the natural flow comes out of that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Jay, I got one more question for you, and that's
Yeah.
simply this: that if you have a mom that comes to you and they have a 13, 14-year-old that's into hip hop,
Yeah.
and they say, hey, we want to use some of your music to really impact them for Jesus. But when you meet the kid, they say, I don't believe in God. I don't
Yeah.
need Jesus. I like some of your beats, but I'm not going to go all in on this faith in Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
What would you say to them over time as you develop that relationship?
Oh, that's a good one. Over time, I would continue to I could continue to give them music, continue to give them music, and continue to just love on them. And I think as God shows me opportunities, if we're in relationship, you know what I mean, like we know each other, I'm seeing them all the time. Um, as God gives opportunities, man, just like start showing like start showing naturally, the ways that I don't know, whenever the opening comes to bring it up. I don't want to force cramming God down anybody's
Yeah.
throat
Yeah.
or anything like that. But I do want to be intentional on making sure that they can see God working in their life. So one of the things, like when I used to run a group home with my wife, and we had a lot of kids like that who like did not want to know anything about God. They love the music, but like I don't care about that. But it would be times where it'd be like, hey, you were really nice to that person. Why did you decide to do that? And they're like, I don't know. That just felt like that I should do that. And then I'm like, who else? I
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned from Jesus, man. Like that's a that love, that principle that came from him. And so starting, so those were just opportunities where like just naturally being able to flow and do that. And a lot of times it made a kid more open to be like, want to figure out what this was all about. And so um, a lot of times when I see people who are apprehensive, a lot of times it's because they have misconceptions on who Jesus really is. And so
Definitely.
trying to just show them who the real Jesus is, would be my goal over time. So yeah.
For sure. Hey, I said it was the last question, but I'm a
Yeah,
pastor, so we're known for having like
yeah, yeah,
17
yeah. It's like
conclusions to a sermon.
probably like, well, last point, and then we
One
like
more.
20 minutes later, it's like, yeah.
Well, they say when you say in conclusion, people pay more attention. So maybe
Right,
that's
right.
why we say it so many times. But what is it about music that draws people in? And we have this conversation a lot within our local church that
Yeah.
worship is certainly more than music.
Mhm.
However, music really allows people to worship in a
Yeah,
spectacular way. And it doesn't have to be, quote, praise and worship music. It could be hip hop, it could be
yeah,
any genre that
right.
God will use. What is it about beats that really bring people closer to God, in your opinion?
Um, I think it's something that uh it helps you focus in. Um, it's weird, man. Music can convey an emotion. Music can
Yeah.
convey a feeling. Music can remind you of a moment. Music can, it's just it's so powerful, man. Um, and I think, I mean, you look at like uh, David playing a harp, like
Right.
you had the king who was having nightmares, and the power of David just coming and playing his harp made his, put his mind at ease. It's just music is just a powerful tool that God has given us to draw closer to him. I'm just and so I'm just honored that um he blessed me with the gift to be able to convey something, even close to that. So um yeah, but yeah, man, I don't know if I could put my finger on what exactly it is that just brings everybody together, except for the fact that that's what music was created to
Yeah.
worship. You know what I mean? Like that was the whole purpose why we have music, why we have these sounds that go together and everything. Like the original purpose of it was to draw people to God. And so um I so when you hear it, you just see it's a person's natural, thing to do, to move towards it, because that's just our we just have a bend to doing that because that's how we were created. So yeah.
There's something about it. It's certainly
Yeah.
special. Hey, I'm going to put the chaos link on this YouTube
Yeah.
link and on Facebook, and you guys can certainly follow J Crum Music as well. But hey, thanks so much, Pastor, for
Yeah,
making the
man.
time and just being a part, sharing your story. We can learn a lot when we listen, and thanks for being here.
I appreciate you, bro.
All right, man. That's J Crum. JCrumMusic.com is where you can find more information. My name is Jeff Fuller. J Fuller Interviews on YouTube. Pastor at hopeforvermont.org is my email. And if you need anything, reach out. We're simply beggars showing other beggars where to find bread. Just want to show God's love in a practical way, be his hands and feet.